Welcome back. Brian Calfano along with Nick Reed and Amy Blancett, our Ozarks first contributors. Good to have you here.
Hey.
And wanted to talk today about the return of Eric the Great, if you're a fan of former Governor Eric Greitens, or if you're not, maybe the Eric not so great. He ended up getting recently a report issued by the Missouri Ethics Commission that ended up justifying him being fined $178,000. Greitens turns around in true Donald Trump fashion, essentially, and says, total exoneration here, everything's great, it's a little fine, what's the big deal? Now he's making the rounds, saying, you know, this was just concocted by my political enemies, it was a witch hunt, et cetera, et cetera. Sounds quite familiar, actually. And now he might be putting his big toe back into the stream of Missouri politics. This has current Governor Mike Parson not exactly enthused, if you believe the report. So, general take on this, you two, about former Governor Greitens. We haven't talked about him in a long time, but he may be making a comeback here in the Show Me State. What do you think?
Do you think it
Don't
can
be so
make a
reserved.
comeback?
Don't be so reserved, Nick. Yeah.
Right.
Have you met the governor, former governor, in your travels?
When he was a candidate.
Yeah.
Same,
Yes.
as a candidate.
Right. And so, what was your impression?
I think he's well put together, as candidates go, right?
Yeah.
So when we, you know, the question is he going to come back? Could he come back, especially if we're talking about in the state of Missouri? And normally I would say absolutely not. You know, we're going to have trust issues, the way that even if it wasn't him, individuals running his campaign were shown to have received money and not document it correctly. Normally I would say no. Right? He was a good-looking politician. He could dress in a suit, but put on his boots. So he represented the two sides of Missouri well.
But you're done with him.
Well, no, but within our recent political climate, normally I would say no. There's no way that he could gain our trust back. But all he has to do is follow the playbook of Donald Trump, and he can tell anyone who poo-poos on his ideas, well, it's fine for our president. I could be, you know, questionable in my sexual endeavors. That has nothing to do with politics. I could be questionable in the way that I raise funds. Apparently, that doesn't matter in politics.
Are you talking about Bill Clinton? Sorry.
Or many political figures right now.
That's the thing. I mean, there are so many things that Trump has managed to somehow get the monopoly on that he is just one of.
Correct.
That just in terms of accusations. When it comes to the Missouri Ethics Commission or any sort of campaign violations, I don't know. This isn't mean that it's okay, but I don't know that there's any major candidate that hasn't been fined.
Some kind of violation.
Right, and
Correct.
Sometimes it's because the rules are so twisted and screwed up and backwards that it is virtually impossible to stay within.
But it's not a total exoneration.
Well, right, the campaign, and so for those people that don't know, the campaign was found to have violated some reporting issues on a couple of different areas, but what they said is, well, we don't know if he knew about it. I don't even know that they necessarily investigated that aspect of it, but that's not uncommon. Did he know about it? Don't know. Did he not know about it? Don't know that either.
But why resign then? I mean, this is the thing. If this was all just a bunch of witch hunt stuff, whatever you want to call it, why then leave in the middle of 2018 the way that he did?
Well, the word at the time was the people who had long been backing him were telling him, you just need to get out now. And, you know, maybe you can still salvage yourself, come back later, or perhaps we can make sure that you are taken care of down the road in terms of some lucrative job. But it was just the behind-the-scenes people that are usually there saying, "Keep, you know, we got your back." They no longer were, and that's why things came to the head.
All right. So then, as a political force in Missouri, where do you come down on this? Is he done? I mean, we've got this genteel guy up there now who is well liked. You may not like everything he does, but he's popular on both sides of the aisle, relatively speaking. Is there any room for a politician like Eric Greitens in Missouri politics right now?
Well, the whole landscape is really, really screwy because Mike Parson, and there are these pro-Parson PAC that's running ads right now, and it's really casting him as a conservative. And this is apparently out of concern that Greitens is going to come in and say he's not, maybe really campaign on the fact that Parson spent a lot of effort trying to get taxes raised on gasoline in Missouri. Something, usually raising taxes is not something that a conservative does. And so what the thinking here is that, well, he's worried that Greitens is going to get in. But Parson does have great support. people like him. He is Mr. Nice Guy, where Greitens wasn't so much.
Greitens
And
was a bit of a pain, even to his own party. Not popular.
That's what did him in. That's what did him in.
His own party were the ones that were saying it's time for you to walk away, not the opposing party. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, would Missourians vote for him again? Could there be a great campaign that, you know, paints him in the right picture? Most likely. But when you have a party that's not going to support you, that's where I really think, is it possible for him to be back? How is he going to win his party over when they're the ones that were
And he barely
pushing him out?
won in 2016 in that primary.
Let me just throw another one out there just for fun. Maybe he'll switch back and run as a Democrat.
I was going to bring that up.
Because that's what his entire life, and that's what he really researched running for Congress. He was up in D.C. talking to the movers and shakers. You know, he was entrenched. He wasn't one of these guys that, well, I just voted Democrat. I mean, he was in it. And then when it came to running for governor, candor was the clear. You know, he was clearly the guy that was going to win
that lane.
Right.
Yeah.
So Greitens switches parties. Now, that being said, he did things that were more conservative than a lot of Republicans in terms of policy even pushed for. So a guy that was born and bred Democrat, was active as a Democrat, decided for, you know, arguably for pragmatic purposes to run as a Republican, actually pushed through more conservative things than Republicans had managed to on their own. So who knows?
Does that make
maybe
you...
he'll Bloomberg it. He'll just switch
I was
back.
going to say, does that make you not trust him?
Does that make me not trust him?
That kind of flip-flopping?
I don't think so, especially now where we're so far right, so far left. To switch parties, that's kind of the new trend. Just hashtag it, put it on Twitter, and everyone's going to be behind you.
So they're just political performers?
Correct. Who isn't?
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. Well, you know, it would be very, very, very difficult for him to get. I just, maybe if he ran as an independent and thinks, well, maybe he can get a plurality again. Nobody gets a majority of the vote, but he gets a plurality and is able to get in that way. But I just don't see that even he or his people would find it reasonable that he could beat Parson, because Parson does have, you know, people like niceness.
Yeah.
Overall, they like that. He's got name recognition.
They want to be polite.
He's got all that
It's
stuff.
Missouri.
Yeah, so.
Anyway, we'll keep an eye on this, and we appreciate your time tonight. Nikki Reed and Amy Blancett will be back after this.